The sound of luxury cars filled the air as the long driveway shimmered beneath golden evening lights. Laughter, music, and the hum of conversation drifted to the courtyard of Ryan's mansion, a celebration of success, a night he had dreamed of for years. But as he stood at the top of the marble staircase, greeting guests with a polite smile, his eyes froze on a sight that made his chest tighten. They were here, his family, the same people who had refused to attend his wedding, the same ones who hadn't spoken his name in years. His father stepped out of a black SUV, polished shoes glinting under the lights, followed by his mother and brother, all dressed as if walking into a royal gala, their faces carefully composed, almost proud. Ryan's grip tightened around his glass. His pulse quickened, the ghost of old pain whispering through his mind. They ignored him when he was no one. Now, surrounded by luxury and success, they suddenly remembered he existed. The crowd's applause for his arrival faded into a haunting silence in his head, and as his father met his gaze from across the grand hall, a cold smile tugged at Ryan's lips. "Welcome," he whispered under his breath. "You finally showed up now that I'm worth noticing." Years before the mansion, the cars, and the flashing cameras, Ryan was just a quiet boy in a loud house, one where love was measured in achievements, not affection. His father, Richard, was a man who believed success was the only proof of worth. His mother, Evelyn, followed quietly behind her husband's rules, never daring to disagree. And Ryan was the invisible one. His older brother, Nathan, was a golden child. Top grades, star athlete, always the one their father proudly introduced to guests. When Ryan brought home a report card with average marks, his father didn't yell. That would have been too kind. Instead, he sighed, looked him in the eye, and said the words that would haunt Ryan for years. "Maybe not everyone in this family is meant to shine." Those words carved themselves into Ryan's heart. From that day on, he tried harder, working part-time jobs, staying up late to study, doing everything to earn the approval that never came. Yet, no matter what he did, Nathan was always the example and Ryan the disappointment. As he grew older, the distance only widened. When Ryan announced he was marrying Lena, a woman his father called too simple, and his mother called mistake, the final thread of family connection snapped. "We won't be part of your failure," his father said coldly. "Don't expect our blessing." And they didn't show up. On the day Ryan said his vows, there were empty chairs where his parents should have sat. Lena held his hand tighter, whispering, "You don't need them. You have me." He smiled for the photos, laughed with friends, and danced with his wife. But behind every smile was a quiet ache of being a son unseen, a man unloved by the people who were supposed to stand beside him. That night, as fireworks painted the sky, Ryan looked up and made a silent promise. "One day, I'll make them see me. Not because I need their approval, but because I'll no longer care for it." The wedding was small, intimate, beautiful, and painfully incomplete. Soft music filled the garden as sunlight filtered to the trees, casting golden hues across the white roses that lined the aisle. Every seat was filled with laughter and warmth, except for the two empty chairs near the front, reserved for Ryan's parents. He tried not to look at them, but his eyes couldn't help wandering back. Each time he did, the emptiness hit harder, like a silent reminder of rejection dressed in flowers and smiles. Lena, radiant in her gown, squeezed his hand and whispered, "Forget them. This is our day." He nodded, forcing a smile, but inside, he was breaking. As vows were exchanged and promises sealed with trembling voices, Ryan's heart felt both full and hollow, full of love for the woman before him, but hollow from the absence of the people who raised him. During the reception, friends toasted to new beginnings, and music drowned out the ache in his chest. Yet when the photographer asked him to pose for a family picture, Ryan froze. His family wasn't there. He stood beside Lena, her parents smiling warmly beside them, and forced a grin as the flash went off. In that frozen second, something inside him shifted, not anger, not hate, but a quiet resolve. Later that night, after the last guest left and the lights dimmed, Ryan sat alone beneath the stars. The laughter from inside drifted out to where he sat, silent and still. He thought about the years he'd spent chasing approval, begging to be seen, to be enough. And in that moment, under the vast, uncaring sky, He whispered to himself, "They chose to miss my beginning, but they'll regret missing my rise." That night, the boy who longed for love died, and a man determined to prove his worth was born. The honeymoon ended quickly, not because of love, but because of life. Ryan and Lena returned to a tiny apartment on the edge of the city, one with creaking floors, flickering lights, and a rent they could barely afford. Days blurred into nights as Ryan juggled 3 part-time jobs: waiting tables, repairing laptops, and delivering packages. He came home every night exhausted, his clothes soaked in sweat, his hands cracked from work. But when he saw Lena waiting with dinner and a smile, the weight on his shoulders felt a little lighter. Still, there were nights he broke, nights when bills piled higher than his courage, when rejection emails filled his inbox like taunts from fate. He'd applied for dozens of business loans and startup grants, each one denied. His father's words haunted him. Maybe not everyone is meant to shine. Sometimes, Ryan almost believed it, but Lena refused to let him give up. "You'll make it," she'd whisper. "You have something they don't. Heart." So he kept going. He spent late nights sketching business plans on napkins, teaching himself coding, marketing, and finance through free online videos. Every failure taught him something new. Every rejection hardened his resolve. Then one winter morning, he found an opportunity that seemed impossible. A local tech company needed a small team to create an app prototype. It paid almost nothing, but it was a start. Ryan poured his soul into it, sleeping barely 3 hours a night. Months later, that small project caught the attention of an investor who saw something in Ryan others had missed: potential. It was an overnight success, but it was the first spark in a long darkness. As the money slowly began to trickle in, Ryan realized something powerful. Success wasn't about proving his father wrong anymore. It was about proving himself right. Success didn't arrive with fireworks. It came quietly, almost unnoticed. Months after completing that small tech project, Ryan received an unexpected email from a venture firm. They had seen his work, loved his ideas, and wanted to meet. He read the message 3 times before believing it was real. Lena screamed when he told her. "See? I told you," she said, tears in her eyes. "Your moment's coming." That meeting changed everything. Ryan walked into the glass-walled office in his only suit, borrowed, slightly loose at the shoulders, but he spoke with confidence that came from years of hunger and heartbreak. He didn't pitch wealth. He pitched vision. He told them about an app that could connect small businesses to local customers more efficiently. They listened, and for the first time, someone said, "We believe in you." The deal was small, but it was enough. Ryan poured every ounce of himself into building that company. There were setbacks, sleepless nights, and near disasters, but he never stopped. Within 2 years, the app exploded in popularity. Local shops use it, investors lined up, and media outlets called Ryan the face of self-made innovation. The man who once fixed broken laptops now ran a company worth millions. But behind the headlines and flashing cameras, Ryan remained quiet, focused. He hadn't forgotten where he came from, or the pain that had shaped him. Then, one afternoon, as he scrolled through his phone after a long day, he saw something that made his breath catch, a message from his mother. "We're proud of you, Ryan. Your father wants to see you." His chest tightened. For years, he had dreamed of hearing those words. But now, they didn't bring comfort, only questions. From late-night coding in a broken apartment to sitting in a boardroom overlooking the city skyline, Ryan's life had transformed beyond recognition. His startup, once a desperate gamble, was now a thriving empire. His face appeared in magazines, his name mentioned in tech conferences, and his story became a symbol of resilience. But behind the calm smile and tailored suits was the same man who once stared at unpaid bills and empty chairs at his wedding. Ryan had built something extraordinary, not from privilege, but from pain. He bought a modern glass mansion on the hills, not out of vanity, but as a promise to himself, a reminder that he had survived when no one believed he would. He still remembered the nights when he could barely afford dinner, the echo of his father's voice saying, "You'll never make it." Now his company employed hundreds. Now, that same voice would have to acknowledge him. Each milestone felt surreal. The first million in the bank, the luxury car in the driveway, the letters from universities asking him to speak about success. Yet, Ryan's heart stayed strangely quiet. The glory didn't heal the scars. It only reminded him of where they came from. One evening, as he stood by his mansion's window watching the city lights flicker, Lena wrapped her arms around him and whispered, "You did it, Ryan. You proved them wrong." He smiled softly. "I didn't do it to prove them wrong," he said. "I did it to prove that I could live without them." But deep inside, he knew fate wasn't done with him yet. Because sometimes the past doesn't fade when you rise. It comes knocking when you least expect it. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Ryan was hosting a charity gala at his mansion, an event he had organized to give back to struggling entrepreneurs, people like he once was. Cameras flashed, laughter echoed, and guests mingled across marble floors and glittering chandeliers. Then, in the middle of it all, his world froze. At the entrance stood his parents, Richard and Evelyn, dressed impeccably, as if they'd never miss a day of his life. His brother Nathan followed behind, holding a champagne bottle and a rehearsed smile. For a moment, Ryan couldn't breathe. Memories crashed over him like a storm. The wedding they skipped, the years of silence, the words that cut too deep to forget. His mother was the first to speak. "Ryan, you've done so well. We're so proud of you." Her voice trembled, unsure, testing the ground between them. Richard extended his hand. "You've made this family proud, son. I knew you had it in you." Ryan looked at that hand, the same one that once waved him off as a disappointment, the same one that never lifted him up when he fell. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hides both victory and sadness. "You didn't know," he said softly. "You just forgot to look." The guests watched, sensing the tension beneath the polished surface. It was a reunion he once dreamed of, but now it felt empty. They hadn't come out of love. They came because he finally had something worth noticing, and that realization hurt more than their silence ever did. The night stretched on, the laughter fading into murmurs as guests slowly drifted away. Only family remained, a word that now felt foreign to Ryan. They sat in his grand living room, surrounded by wealth built from years of loneliness. The ticking clock filled the silence until Richard finally spoke, his tone calm but edged with something sharp. "Ryan, I always knew you'd find your path. Maybe I was too hard on you back then, but it made you strong." Ryan's jaw tightened. "No, Dad, it didn't make me strong. It made me invisible." His mother flinched. Nathan looked away, uncomfortable. Ryan stood, pacing slowly across the marble floor. "You didn't come to my wedding. You didn't call when we were struggling. You never even asked if I was happy. But now, suddenly, I'm worth your time because I'm someone the world sees." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "We were scared you'd fail. We didn't want to watch you fall." Ryan turned, his voice trembling between anger and heartbreak. "Then you should have been there to help me stand up again." The room went silent. The weight of years hung between them. The distance, the pride, the love that had rusted with time. Richard finally rose to his feet, his face pale, his pride cracking. "You've changed, Ryan." Ryan met his father's eyes, calm now but cold. "No, I just stopped waiting for your approval." He walked toward the door, his voice steady but heavy with finality. "You taught me what family shouldn't feel like, and for that I'm grateful." He paused, hand on the doorknob without looking back. "Enjoy the party, Dad. It's everything you wanted, success without love." And with that, he walked away, leaving the silence to finish the conversation words never could. Days passed after confrontation, but the echoes of that night lingered in Ryan's heart. He didn't feel anger anymore, just a deep, quiet ache that came from finally letting go. He stood on the balcony one evening, watching the city lights shimmer below. Lena joined him, slipping her hand into his. For a long time, they said nothing. The silence between them wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. "Do you regret saying all that?" she asked softly. Ryan shook his head. "No. For the first time, I didn't speak to be understood. I spoke to be free." He had spent years chasing the love of people who couldn't see him, but now he understood. Forgiveness wasn't about them. It was about reclaiming peace from pain. A week later, he sent a simple message to his parents. "I forgive you. I hope you find happiness too." He didn't expect a reply, and none came. But that was okay. The wound had finally closed. Ryan turned to Lena and smiled. "I spent my life proving I could make it without them. Now I just want to live, not to prove, but to feel." And as the night breeze brushed his face, he realized he'd won something far greater than success: peace within himself. Success had given Ryan the world, wealth, recognition, freedom. But what truly defined him wasn't what he gained. It was what he let go of. He learned that love without respect is empty, and family without support is just a word. Yet, even in betrayal, he found the strength to forgive, not because he deserved it, but because he deserved peace. Ryan no longer chased approval or validation. His mansion, his cars, his company. They were symbols not of pride, but of survival. The real victory was standing tall after being broken, smiling after being forgotten, and finding light after being left in the dark. As he walked through the quiet halls of his home that night, he whispered to himself, "They skipped my beginning, but they'll remember my story." And that became the truth of his life, that the most powerful success is not proving others wrong, but proving yourself right.